When you walk in purpose, people don't just remember you, they feel your absence. There's a difference between being noticed and being unforgettable. See, anyone can catch someone's attention for a moment, but when you carry something deeper, something real, you don't just pass through a person's life, you leave a mark. And that mark doesn't fade when the conversation ends. It doesn't vanish when the connection breaks. It lingers, it echoes, especially in the stillness of night, when everything is quiet and the noise of the world fades. That's when your presence starts speaking louder than ever. He doesn't just remember your face. He remembers how he felt in your presence. He remembers the safety, the peace, the acceptance. And no matter how far he tries to run, no matter who he tries to replace you with, that feeling doesn't go away because it was never shallow, it was never surface. You didn't give him a version of yourself that was built on pretending. You were real, you were raw, and you were honest in a world where most people are afraid to be. And here's the truth, purpose has a scent, and when you walk in it, people remember how it smelled. Not just what you said, not just how you looked, but what your soul carried. That's why he thinks about you at night, because when the distractions die down, when the lights are off and no one's watching, the heart tells the truth. It's not confused by ego, it's not blinded by pride. It remembers who poured into it, who calmed it, who made it feel like it could breathe without pretending to be someone else. He keeps thinking about you because what you carried couldn't be imitated. And deep down, he knows he fumbled something rare, not because you were perfect, but because you were present, you were intentional, you were solid. And those kind of people don't come around every day. They come as a reminder, a lesson, a wake-up call, and sometimes a blessing he wasn't ready to receive. Let him think, let him wonder, because the kind of impact you made doesn't need validation. It speaks in silence. It moves in absence. And sometimes the loudest message you can send is no longer being available. You moved with peace, not pressure. There's a power in calm that many don't understand. Most people chase, they hustle, they scramble, they try to force things to happen. But you operated differently. You didn't beg for attention. You didn't scramble for validation. You carried yourself with a quiet confidence that said, I know my worth, and I'm not desperate to prove it. That's a rare kind of strength. One that doesn't scream for approval, but quietly demands respect. And that kind of strength sticks with people long after you've gone. Think about it. When the world is noisy, when emotions are loud and chaos rules the day, peace becomes a refuge, just like an oasis in the desert. And when night falls, when everything slows down, the mind goes searching for calm. That's why he keeps thinking about you at night, because you brought something he didn't realize he was starving for. Not drama, not pressure, not endless chasing, but peace. You gave him a taste of something real, something steady, something that didn't come with conditions or chaos. Most people don't appreciate peace until they lose it. They chase the wrong things: excitement, unpredictability, control. And they miss the quiet strength of someone who simply stands firm. You were that person. You were steady when he was shaky. You were calm when his world was spinning out of control. And he knows it, even if he doesn't say it, even if he tries to run from it, because peace leaves a mark deeper than words ever can. You didn't force love or affection. You didn't manipulate or try to control how he felt. You understood something powerful. That true connection can't be rushed, can't be pressured, can't be demanded. It has to grow naturally in its own time. And that's why you're on his mind, because you modeled a way of loving that was free, respectful, and unshakable. A love that said, I am here, but I am not desperate. That balance, that freedom is hard to forget. There's a spiritual strength in peace. It reflects maturity. It reflects trust in the process and trust in yourself. It says, I am enough, even if you don't see it now. When you move with peace, you tell a story that no words can capture, a story of self-respect, of faith, of knowing that your value doesn't depend on someone else's approval. That story keeps playing in his mind when the world is quiet. And let's be honest, pressure never works in matters of the heart. Pressure only pushes people away. It creates walls where there could have been bridges. But peace breaks down walls. Peace invites trust. Peace allows love to breathe. When he's alone in the dark, the memory of your calm presence calls him back to what felt right. Not because it was easy, but because it was real. Because it was steady. You didn't just leave an impression. You left a refuge, a place where he could be himself, without fear, without judgment, without pressure. And that refuge is unforgettable. People chase after what feels good, but they remember what feels safe. And peace, true peace, is the safest feeling there is. So while he's thinking about you at night, it's because you gave him something rare and powerful, a moment of peace in a world full of noise and chaos. And no matter how hard he tries to forget, that peace won't let him go. It's a reminder of what real connection looks like, and it challenges him to ask himself what he really wants. When you move with peace, you don't just change your own life, you change the lives of those who cross your path. And that kind of impact doesn't fade with time. It stays, it lingers. It calls him back, not out of desperation, but because peace always has the last word. You had standards, not desperation. There's a powerful difference between the two, and it's something that most people never truly understand until they've lived through the aftermath of settling. When you hold your ground, when you refuse to lower your expectations just to fill a void, you send a message louder than words ever could. That message says, I know my worth. I won't settle for less than I deserve. And that kind of conviction sticks with people, especially when they realize too late what they let go. Too often, people confuse desperation with desire. They think that wanting someone badly means chasing them down, begging for their attention, or compromising their values just to stay close. But that's not how you operated. You stood firm, unapologetically, and made it clear that you would not be anyone's second choice or backup plan. You weren't desperate for approval or affection. You were deliberate, intentional, and that rare quality haunts people because it's a mirror reflecting what they fail to appreciate. He keeps thinking about you at night because he remembers the standards you set, the boundaries you never crossed. You didn't lower your expectations to fit into his world. You asked him to meet you where you were. And that's a challenge few are willing to face. It's easier to accept whatever is handed to them than to rise up and meet the demand of true respect. But you chose the harder path, the path of self-respect. And when the lights go out and silence takes over, that kind of integrity becomes impossible to ignore. There's a strength in having standards because it forces people to reckon with their own shortcomings. When you don't settle, you force others to ask themselves, am I enough? Am I worthy of this kind of love and respect? And when the answer is no, when they realize they fell short, that's when regret sets in. Regret doesn't just come from losing someone, it comes from losing someone who refused to lower their standards for them. You weren't just a person in his life, you were a standard bearer. You showed him what respect looks like in action, not just in words. You made it clear that love isn't about clinging to what's convenient or comfortable. It's about honor. It's about valuing yourself enough to walk away when the conditions aren't right. And that lesson, it's hard to forget. People think they want love, but what they really want is to be worthy of love. You forced him to confront that truth. You made him question if he was ready to give you the kind of respect you demanded. And the reality is, many aren't ready. Many choose the easier road of taking what they can get instead of rising up to what they should give. But you weren't one of those people. You held the line. You chose peace over chaos, dignity over desperation. That's why your absence feels like a wound, because it's a reminder of what he never valued enough when you were present. It's a reminder that real strength isn't about clinging to someone who doesn't see your worth. It's about standing tall, walking away, and knowing that you deserve better. And when he lies awake at night, those standards you embodied don't just replay, they confront him. You gave him a glimpse of what real respect looks like, and deep down he knows he failed to match it. He knows that he lost someone who demanded more than just empty promises. He lost someone who wouldn't settle for less than she deserved, and that truth will haunt him, because you didn't just leave a memory, you left a legacy of self-worth. You never had to say much. Your actions spoke loud enough, and the silence that followed your departure echoes louder than any apology ever could, because when you have standards, not desperation, you teach people a lesson they remember long after you're gone. Let him think about that. Let him wrestle with what he lost, because you didn't settle for less, and that's the kind of strength that can't be erased. Your energy was different, and that difference is something people don't easily forget. It's not just about what you said or how you looked. It's about the way you made him feel in a way no one else could. Energy isn't something you can fake. It's something that comes from deep within, from the core of who you are. And it carries a message louder than words ever could. When you stepped into a room, you didn't just take up space. You changed the atmosphere. You brought a vibe that stayed long after you left. That kind of energy is magnetic and mysterious. It's what makes people pause and wonder, who was that? It's the feeling of calm mixed with confidence, a quiet power that doesn't need to shout to be heard. And when someone experiences that, it sticks with them. It's like a song that plays softly in the background, even when everything else is loud. That's why he keeps thinking about you at night, because your energy wasn't ordinary. It was rare, it was authentic, it was undeniable. There's a spiritual dimension to energy too. Energy reveals what's inside when words fail. It shows your true self, your passions, your pain, your strength, all bundled up in the way you carry yourself. People pick up on that without even realizing it. And when night comes and the distractions fall away, that raw, real energy becomes a beacon in the darkness. It calls him back to moments when he felt something he can't quite put into words, but knows he misses. You didn't need to explain yourself or convince anyone to like you, because your energy did the work. It told the story of someone who was whole, someone who was not trying to be anyone else, someone who owned her truth. And that kind of authenticity is powerful. It can unsettle people because it forces them to look at themselves and ask, why can't I be that? Why did I let this slip away? Energy is the language of the soul. It's how you communicate beyond the surface. And when you have that kind of energy, people don't just notice you, they feel you. It creates a presence that lingers in the mind and heart, especially when the world is quiet and the heart is left to its own devices. That's when your energy visits him like a shadow, impossible to shake, impossible to forget. He thinks about you at night because your energy was a reminder of what real connection looks like. It was a reminder that not all bonds are built on words or appearances. Some are built on the unseen, on the vibration between two souls that refuses to be silenced. And when you're no longer there, that vibration keeps humming, reminding him of what he lost. You gave him a glimpse of a life lived with intention and authenticity. You showed him what it means to be present, to be genuine, to be fully yourself without apology. And that kind of presence doesn't just disappear. It stays, it calls back, it haunts. The energy you carried was a light in his darkness, a truth he couldn't deny even if he wanted to. And that's why, in the quiet of the night, he keeps coming back to you. Because your energy speaks louder than any words ever could. You challenged him in ways no one else dared to, not by being loud or confrontational, but by simply refusing to accept anything less than the truth about himself, about his potential, and about what he truly deserved. Sometimes the hardest thing we can do for someone is to hold up a mirror and make them face who they really are, even when they don't want to. You did that. You didn't settle for the surface. You pushed deeper. You demanded more. And that kind of challenge, though uncomfortable, is unforgettable. Those people avoid challenges because they fear the discomfort it brings. They want to stay comfortable, to stay in their safe zones, even if it means ignoring their own growth. But you didn't let him hide behind excuses or illusions. You showed him the parts of himself he didn't want to see, the potential he hadn't reached, the love he was too afraid to give or receive. And that's why he thinks about you, because you made him question himself in a way no one else did. There's a kind of love that feels easy, soft words, gentle touches, sweet promises. But the love you offered was different. It was hard because it was real. It demanded honesty and courage. It asked him to step up, to be more, to do better. That's not always comfortable, but it's necessary. Growth never happens in comfort zones. You were the challenge that pushed him beyond his limits, beyond his fears, beyond his excuses. And even though he might not say it out loud, that challenge stuck with him. It lingers in his mind during those quiet moments when the noise fades away. He thinks about how you refused to let him settle, how you held him accountable to his better self. That kind of impact doesn't fade, it only grows stronger with time. You weren't just someone passing through his life, you were a catalyst. You sparked something within him, something he couldn't ignore. You planted a seed of change, even if he hasn't fully nurtured it yet. And that's powerful, because when someone challenges you to be better and you feel it deeply, it becomes a part of you, whether you admit it or not. So while he's thinking about you at night, know this: it's not just because of what you gave him, but because of what you dared to ask from him. It's the reminder that real love doesn't just comfort, it confronts. And that confrontation, though difficult, is what awakens the soul. You left an impression that goes beyond words and moments. You left a legacy in his mind and heart. It's not just about the time you spent together or the memories you shared. It's about the lasting effect you had on his life, the mark you made that he can't erase. Some people come and go, fading into the background, but you didn't. You showed up fully, and that kind of presence leaves a footprint that lingers long after you're gone. He thinks about you because you changed something inside him, maybe something he didn't even realize needed changing until you came along. You stirred feelings, thoughts, and reflections that refused to settle. You made him see life differently, maybe even better, whether he's ready to admit it or not. That kind of impact is rare, and when someone experiences it, they carry it with them like a secret that won't let go. Think about the people who have influenced you the most. They're not just part of your story. They shape the way you see the world, the way you make decisions, the way you dream. That's what you did for him. You weren't just another chapter, you were a turning point. And when night falls, when the mind quiets and the heart speaks, that turning point calls him back to you again and again. There's a kind of permanence in the impact you leave. It's like planting a seed in soil. It keeps growing underground, unseen at first, but strong enough to break through the surface when the time is right. You planted a seed in him. You gave him something to think about, to remember, to regret, or to hope for. And because that seed is alive, it pulls at his thoughts when everything else fades away. The truth is, not everyone leaves a lasting mark. Many relationships pass like shadows, barely noticed, quickly forgotten. But you didn't pass quietly. You came with intention, with authenticity, with a power that can't be ignored. And that power stays, it echoes in the silence, in the spaces where he thought he was alone, but really isn't. So when he lies awake at night, it's not just memories that bring him back to you. It's the deep impact you had. It's the legacy you left behind. And that kind of presence isn't easy to forget because it's part of the story he'll carry with him for a long time. You gave him something he never expected, a sense of peace. In a world full of chaos, confusion, and noise, peace is rare. It's not something people can easily find or hold on to, especially when it comes to relationships. But with you, there was a calmness, a quiet assurance that made even the hardest days feel a little easier. That peace wasn't just about being comfortable together. It was about feeling safe, understood, and accepted without having to pretend or fight for it. And that feeling, it stays with a person long after the moments have passed. People chase excitement, drama, and intensity thinking that's what love is supposed to feel like. But deep down, what really matters is peace. Peace in knowing you're enough. Peace in knowing you don't have to constantly prove yourself. Peace in knowing that someone sees you, really sees you, and still chooses to stay. You gave him that. You were a refuge in the storm, a place where he could lower his defenses and just be. And that kind of peace is unforgettable. When night falls and silence surrounds him, that peace becomes a beacon. It calls him back to a time when things felt right, even if the rest of his world was spinning out of control. That peaceful presence you offered is something he craves without even realizing it. It's the quiet voice reminding him of what he lost, what he took for granted, and what he still longs for. Peace isn't flashy or loud. It doesn't demand attention with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It shows up in the little things. A steady hand, a listening ear, a gentle touch. And you gave that to him effortlessly. You made him feel grounded, anchored, and safe. That's why your memory lingers, why your presence haunts his thoughts, especially in the stillness of the night. What you offered was more than comfort, it was healing. Healing from past wounds, from fears, from insecurities. You didn't just bring calm, you brought restoration. And when someone experiences that kind of peace once, they search for it forever, even when they don't understand why. So when he keeps thinking about you at night, know that it's not just about missing you. It's about missing that peace you gave him, that rare sanctuary he can't find anywhere else. And sometimes peace is the most powerful thing we can ever offer or receive. You inspired him in a way that went beyond simple words or gestures. Inspiration isn't something you hand out lightly. It's earned through presence, through the way you live your truth, and through the example you set without even trying. When you walked in his life, you didn't just fill a space, you ignited a spark. You made him see possibilities he hadn't dared to imagine. You showed him a version of life where dreams mattered, where effort had meaning, where he could be more than he ever thought possible. There's a unique power in being someone's inspiration. It's not about perfection or grand achievements, but about authenticity, resilience, and the courage to keep going, even when the world pushes back. You embodied that. You faced your own struggles, yet you never let them define you or dim your light. That resilience caught his attention, made him take notice, and planted seeds of hope and ambition in a place he didn't know needed tending. When he lies awake at night, his mind drifts to those moments when you spoke, when you acted, when you simply existed in a way that stirred something deep inside him. It's those quiet moments, often overlooked, that leave the strongest impression. The way you carried yourself with confidence, the way you smiled despite the pain, the way you kept pushing forward, all of that inspired him. It reminded him that no matter how hard life gets, there is a way forward, a path to something greater. Inspiration is contagious. It moves silently through the heart, planting ideas, dreams, and a renewed sense of purpose. You didn't just inspire him to think differently, you inspired him to believe differently, to believe in his worth, in his potential, in the possibility of a better tomorrow. That kind of inspiration stays with a person. It becomes a compass, guiding them back when they've lost their way. More than that, you showed them what it means to live with integrity and passion. You didn't just talk about change, you embodied it. That example challenged him to rise up, to face his fears, and to break free from the patterns that held him back. Inspiration like that is rare. It cuts through doubt and fear, lighting a fire that can't be easily extinguished. So when he keeps thinking about you in the quiet of the night, it's because you're the spark that still burns within him. You're the reason he dreams bigger, reaches higher, and refuses to settle for less. And that kind of inspiration, real, raw, and lasting, is something no one forgets. There's a part of him that never truly moved on because you challenged his very understanding of love. You didn't just offer him affection or companionship. You offered him a new way to see what love really means. And that kind of shift is unsettling, powerful, and unforgettable. When someone opens your eyes to something deeper, something raw and real, it changes the way you relate to everything, not just to that person, but to yourself and the world around you. You made him realize that love isn't about possession or control, but about freedom and growth. You taught him without saying a word that love requires honesty, brutal honesty, and the courage to face hard truths, even when it hurts. That kind of love is rare, and it shakes a person to the core. He keeps thinking about you because you redefined love for him. You made him question everything he thought he knew, and that kind of disruption doesn't fade away quietly. When night falls and the world gets still, his mind drifts to those moments when love felt like both the safest place and the most challenging test. You made him confront his fears, fear of loss, fear of vulnerability, fear of being truly known and still accepted. Those fears don't disappear overnight. They linger in the dark, twisting and turning with memories of what could have been and what still might be. You gave him a love that demanded growth, and that demand never leaves a man's heart alone. Love, when it is real, leaves marks, not scars, but imprints. Imprints of moments when you felt understood, accepted, and pushed to be better, all at the same time. You held him accountable to his highest self and loved him enough to not let him settle for less. That balance is rare, and that balance is what keeps him thinking about you. He's caught between the comfort of your love and the challenge it presented, a tension that doesn't easily let go. It's hard to forget someone who changed your understanding of something as fundamental as love. You shifted the ground beneath his feet, and he's still trying to find his balance. That struggle keeps you alive in his thoughts, alive in the space where love meets growth, where comfort meets challenge. You are the reminder that love is not just to be received, but to be lived fully, even when it's uncomfortable. So when he thinks about you at night, it's because you didn't just love him, you transformed him. And transformation, especially when it comes through love, is a powerful force that refuses to be forgotten. You challenge him in ways no one else dared to. Not everyone has the courage or the heart to push someone beyond their comfort zone, to demand growth and change when it's easier to settle for what's safe and familiar. But you did. You saw his potential, not just the person he was, but the man he could become. And because of that, you challenged him, sometimes softly, sometimes firmly, to rise up, to face his fears, to confront his weaknesses, and to become the best version of himself. That challenge is not always comfortable. Growth never is. It asks for sacrifice, for perseverance, for moments of discomfort and doubt. You didn't let him hide behind excuses or complacency. Instead, you became the voice in his ear that refused to let him settle for less than he deserved, less than he was capable of. That voice echoes in his mind when the world grows quiet, when distractions fade away, and the only thing left is the truth of who he really is and who he wants to be. When he thinks about you at night, he's also thinking about what you demanded of him, not out of criticism, but out of care. You believed in him more than he believed in himself, and that belief became a mirror he can't look away from. It shows him what he's capable of, what he's worthy of, and what he must fight for. You became both his challenge and his motivation. You made him realize that true love isn't just about comfort and ease. It's about growth and elevation. It's about having someone who pushes you when you want to give up, who sees your potential when you're blinded by doubt, and who refuses to accept anything less than your best. That kind of challenge leaves a lasting impression. It shapes character and molds destiny. It's the kind of presence that stays with a person long after the moments have passed. The nights are long, and in the quiet, his mind wrestles with the lessons you gave him. Some of those lessons were hard, some were painful, but all were necessary. You made him face himself, and that confrontation is not easily forgotten. It sticks with him, haunting and healing at the same time. But when he keeps thinking about you at night, it's because you were more than a passing moment. You were the catalyst for his growth, the spark that ignited his transformation, and the challenge he still carries in his heart. And that kind of impact doesn't fade away. It becomes a part of who he is.